Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a beast of a book, Ludwig von Mises' Human Action. Now, this is a massive work, but it makes a pretty wild claim that just one single core idea can explain, well, basically our entire social world. So let's dive in and see if that really holds up.
Okay, let's start with something super simple, your morning coffee. I mean, really think about it for a second. You've got the farmer who grew the beans, maybe halfway across the world, the person who shipped them, the roaster, the barista. How is it possible that all these strangers, people who have no idea who you are, all managed to coordinate to get that cup into your hands?
Well, back in 1949, an economist named Ludwig von Mises came up with a really radical answer in his huge book, Human Action. He basically said, look, it's not some grand master plan. It's not a government agency coordinating everything. It's something much, much more fundamental. It all comes down to the simple, purposeful choices that you, me, and everyone else makes every single day.
All right, so let's get right to the heart of it. The entire system that Mises builds, this whole grand theory, it all rests on just one single foundational concept, the idea of human action.
So what in the world is human action? I mean, what does that actually mean? For Mises, it's super specific. It's not just any old behavior like blinking your eyes. It has to be conscious. It has to be purposeful. It's you deciding to use certain means to get to a specific goal. You're trying to move from a state of, let's say, uneasiness to a better one. Kind of like you right now, choosing to watch this so you can learn something new.
And Mises draws a really, really important line in the sand here. A farmer planting a seed on purpose to get a crop. Yep, that's action. Your heart just beating away in your chest? That's an involuntary reaction. It seems like a simple difference, right? But for Mises, this distinction is everything. It's the absolute bedrock of his entire system.
Okay, so Mises called this purposeful action, an ultimate given. And here's the kicker. He argued that you can't even try to disprove it. Why? Because the very act of trying to disprove something is, you guessed it, a purposeful action. It's this beautiful circular logic. It's just the starting point, the one thing we have to accept to understand anything about how society works.
Okay, so we've got one person making one choice. How on earth do we get from that to the insanely complex global market that delivers your coffee? Well, Mises says it's not magic. It's actually a pretty logical step-by-step process.
So it all starts with just one person, right? Acting to satisfy their own needs. But then, two people realize, hey, I've got something you want, you've got something I want. We'd both be better off if we trade. That simple exchange is the spark. It leads to people specializing in what they're good at, the division of labor. Now, multiply that simple idea by millions and billions of people, and bam, a market just emerges. And this is the key. Nobody planned it. It just grew, totally organically out of all those individual actions. So for Mises, society isn't something that was designed by a committee or built on some grand social contract. No, it's something that's woven together, thread by thread, from billions of these little daily voluntary exchanges. It's just people cooperating through trade.
And here's where something really incredible happens. Out of all this trading, something new emerges: prices. And a price isn't just a number on a tag. It's a powerful signal, packed with information. A high price for coffee beans is basically screaming at farmers, hey, we need more of this. And at the same time, it's whispering to coffee drinkers, maybe have one less cup this week. It's this amazing mechanism that coordinates millions of people without anyone being in charge.
And all of this leads us to what is without a doubt Mises' most famous and most controversial idea. It's his big critique of central planning, what he called the economic calculation problem.
So much of the 20th century was this epic clash between capitalism and socialism, right? Market economies versus planned economies. But Mises' critique was different. He wasn't really arguing about which one was more fair or more moral. His argument was about pure, cold logic. He basically said one of these systems can actually function, and the other one, well, by its very nature, it's impossible.
His argument was actually pretty simple, but it was absolutely devastating. Think about it. In a socialist system, the state owns everything. The factories, the farms, the resources, the whole shebang. But if no one can buy or sell a factory, how do you have any idea what it's actually worth? You can't. There's no market for it, so there are no real prices for any of these essential capital goods.
And this, right here, is the core of the problem. Imagine you're a central planner. You have to decide, should we build this new railway line out of steel, or maybe platinum? Or hey, what about wood? Without market prices that tell you how scarce and in demand each of those materials is, your decision is literally just a blind guess. You have no way to rationally calculate whether you're using resources efficiently or just wasting them on a colossal scale.
But Mises didn't stop there. He went even further, and this was a really bold claim. He argued that the only reason 20th century socialist economies could function at all is because they could cheat. Yep, they were basically just looking over the fence at the prices being generated in capitalist countries and using those numbers to make their plans. He said without those external price signals, they would have been flying completely blind.
So, you might be thinking, okay, this book was written over 70 years ago. Why are we still talking about it? Well, because the fundamental questions Mises asks about planning versus freedom, about how economic order happens, they're arguably more relevant today than ever before.
So let's just recap the big picture here. Mises is painting a picture of a world that wasn't designed from the top down. It was built from the ground up by the choices of billions of individuals. It's a world where this incredibly complex social order just emerges spontaneously from simple voluntary exchange. And he says this core logic of purposeful action, it's universal. It applies to all people, everywhere, at all times.
And that's why this matters so much today. I mean, think about almost any big economic debate we have right now. Government stimulus packages, regulations on tech companies, arguments over free trade. At their very core, they're all grappling with the same questions Mises raised. It's always this fundamental tension between top-down central planning and bottom-up spontaneous order.
And that leaves us with one final, really fascinating question for our modern world. Mises' whole argument was that no single human, or even a committee of humans, could ever process enough information to replace the market. But what about today? What about an AI? Could a super-intelligent AI, hooked up to all the data in the world, finally solve the economic calculation problem? Or is there something about human desires, choices, and actions that can just never, ever be centrally planned? That's the debate Mises left for us, and it's one we're still trying to answer.